And then I came out here to the Tattered cover in Lodo originally for my first signing, and there was about 6 people in the crowd. All of them friends, Footer, Bill Hicks, and all their college buddies from CU, and Gene and some of my old friends I used to play basketball with out here. And then a couple of years later I came back and I went to the Cherry Creek store and I was down in the basement. There was maybe 20 people, and then a few years ago I came back here and there was about maybe half as many people. And so it's been a thrill to watch this. My wife every once in a while will say to me, "Oh, I wish you just wouldn't have to tour." And I say, it's a nice problem to have. Because the alternative is, I think back to my only goose egg in the 11 books was down in Colorado Springs. This shows you how New York they don't get out and see the country enough. They have no idea what goes on in certain communities. What is Colorado Springs famous for other than the United States Air Force Academy and the Olympic Training Center? NORAD. But what does it have more of than any other city in the country? Religions. It has more registered religions than any, and so to have a book signing on a Sunday night in Colorado Springs on the Sabbath was not a good idea. And nobody showed up. My one and only goose egg began 11 tours. So I remember those moments, and I'm very appreciative that you've come out on a night like this and come to visit what is truly known internationally as probably the greatest independent bookstore left in America. And most of you probably know that and are very proud of the Tattered cover, but us authors, this is kind of like going to Carnegie Hall. It's a big deal to come to the Tattered cover. We lost ours in the Twin Cities. The Hungry Mind is gone. I think the Tattered cover has survived and prospered because they're very good at what they do. They care about books and they're good at customer service, and they know it. They open a beautiful store like this and they give you a place to go shop, and that's why they get turnouts like this. I don't see a lot of turnouts like this when I go to, I won't mention some other stores, but I like those stores too, but you've got to support your independent bookstore. This book, and I'm going to kind of move quickly through a couple of things, and we'll go to a Q&A where usually you guys are going to have better questions than what I'm going to get to if I ramble up here for 30 minutes. This book marks a change in my writing, and actually going back to Extreme Measures is where it started. I killed a certain somebody in Consent to Kill, and after I did that I was so emotionally exhausted I wasn't sure I wanted to write about Mitch Rapp for a while. And I sat in my cabin in Wisconsin and tried to figure out what the hell I was going to do to follow up that book. And I eventually went back to Rapp. Wasn't quite ready for it, but I did it. These last 2 books, I have found a new source of motivation. And it's the men and women who I know who work at the CIA and all that they have done for this country in the last 8+ years. This is a military area, so you get it. You get that, men and women put on their uniform and they get on a plane and they fly over to the war zone and their families don't see them for a long, long time. What most Americans don't understand is that after 9/11, there were several hundred elite warriors at the CIA who were sent to all corners of the earth to do what they were told to do. What they were told to do by the President, the Vice President, and virtually every member of the Senate leadership and House leadership. And what they told them was, go get them, and make sure we don't get hit again. I don't care what you have to do, go get them. And these men and women did that. And they spent months on end away from their families, longer deployments often than some of the military units. And lo and behold, they wake up 6 years later, 5 years later, and they've spent virtually 10 months out of every year away from their family. And now they begin to live under constant fear that they are going to land back here in the United States and get arrested by the Justice Department. Because a group of politicians on the Hill have decided that they can make some great hay out of this and embarrass the CIA and harm their opposition. And I blame both parties for this, by the way. I'm not going to... I try to be very careful when I get up and talk about this stuff that there's not a lot of heroes in Washington right now in politics. There just simply isn't. And until... people ask me all the time, why do these books sell? Because if you followed the book industry for the last 5 years, it is flat to down. The last year has been really bad. And I have been lucky enough to continue to buck the trends. Each book has sold more than the previous book, often with a 20+% increase. This book came out this week, and if you've been reading the articles, you'll hear that it's been a scary time in publishing. A lot of well-known authors have been published in the last year, and their sales are off 30%. This book, 4 days on sale, is up 40% over Extreme Measures. Now, I think there's a reason for it, and I'm not so sure. I'm not trying to be intentionally humble or flippant about this. The quality of writing has to be there. Okay, that's assumed. And I know some of these other writers who are down 30%, and the quality is there. They're darn good writers. I think the issue is these books are striking a chord with Americans who are frustrated with what's going on right now. And people are very passionate about them. And I laugh because occasionally I'll get Democrats who will come up to me and they always have to identify themselves. I'm a Democrat and I like your book. Like they should be embarrassed, like it's pornography or something. I love it. You know, if you've noticed, I try to make my politicians in the books, the villains are pretty much equally split. And I've met plenty of these guys, by the way, and the women. And some of them are pretty impressive, but most of them, I love to tell the story how many times I'm in Washington and I'll meet one of them and they'll say, I read your books. I love Term Limits. Great book. Now, if you've read Term Limits, the idea that a politician would read that book and actually like it is proof that they are delusional egomaniacs. that they somehow always think, he must be talking about that other guy. And I'm always thinking about going, no, you're pretty much the role model for the guy who was killed in chapter 5 or whatever it was. Now that book, by the way, started to scare me recently. I've been getting a lot of letters and comments. I'll get the occasional guy who hasn't shaved in about 2 years to walk through the line and say, Term Limits is my favorite book. Just wish it would happen in real life. And then he walks away. He just came in from Idaho for the weekend. No offense to anyone who's Idaho's a lovely place to live. Don't get all upset about it. But that is not I don't think I could have written that book as the 11th book. That is a raw book written, from a guy in his mid-20s who hadn't gotten married yet and didn't understand that there are certain things, that are better just left not ventured into. It is a radical book. It's one of my favorite radio guys, Joe Souchere in the Twin Cities. You should try to listen to him on the internet. Garage Logic. This guy is fantastic. And Joe confided in me after he read it all those years ago. He said, I felt horrible that I was cheering for the bad guys. And that's always kind of stuck with me. That's why these books succeed. Again, they're pretty unambiguous. The terrorists are the bad guys, and a select group, usually of politicians and bureaucrats, are the troublemakers. Does anyone remember the fable, The Scorpion and the Frog, that I put in Extreme Measures? Well, this really sums it up. I've come really recently, I'm convinced that this is what it's all about. The fable goes like this. The scorpion approaches the frog and says, I'd like you to give me a ride across the river on your back. And the frog says, why would I do that? You'll sting me and you'll kill me. And the scorpion says, I wouldn't do that because then we'd both drown.